Well, welcome to the journey. My name is Kevin Polky, and we have a special guest with us today. Actually, she is someone who has already been on the show, but we were just a few minutes ago talking about when Tonya was with us before. It was one of our earlier episodes when we were actually meeting in person. So this was pre-March of 2020, so pre-pandemic. But so we are welcoming back Tonya Cassata-Rink. And so thank you very much for joining us again and being a part of suicide awareness. And we'll also get into that you're going to be one of our guest speakers at our annual event for Shatter Our Silence as well. So welcome back to the journey.
Thank you.
So as I always do whenever we have a guest come on, I ask, so Tonya, what is it when you have an opportunity, when you're not working or with family and everything, what do you do to kind of replenish? What do you do for fun?
Well, every morning I get up and try and exercise before work. And then on days that I don't have work, I try and be out in the yard and exercise and run the path with my dog. We have two dogs, but one refuses to run. So I only take the other one to go running on the path. So
Gotcha.
just Stonebridge Trail. So
Gotcha. And of the two dogs, what kind of dogs are they?
they're Weimaraners.
Okay. And the one doesn't want to run though, huh?
No, and he's the younger one. He's 2 and the other one's 3. And the 2-year-old he'll stop on the middle of the driveway and he won't go any further. So he won't even get in the car.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Funny. So I know since the last time we spoke on the journey, there's been quite a few changes that you've had experienced in your life, change in jobs, and some. Your daughter is off to in the military right now. So why don't you kind of just give us an update about some of the changes that you have going on in your life, and then also some of the things that we're going to be talking about in September.
Right. Well, I did have a job change. I work at a nursery now with plants. And Peyton was in the Coast Guard, and then now she's out and she's in San Antonio. So our only child is miles and miles away, but she absolutely loves it. So and she loves the plants too. She belongs to the San Antonio Botanical Garden, so she can go in there whenever she wants. So if there's questions I need to know about work, sometimes I actually call her.
Sure. And what is she doing in San Antonio?
She actually works from home and does some stuff with medical billing and things like that. So she loves to be able to work from home and do her own thing. So.
Gotcha. And was there a particular, what were some of the story? What's the story behind moving from the Rockford area to San Antonio? How did that come about? Because that seems to be kind of a unique choice.
Right. Well, she had an opportunity to move there with a friend and then ended up moving out on her own, and she's doing really well by herself and just likes to not have to worry about, someone else's house and that kind of stuff. So it was a really good move for her. So that's good.
Oh, good. Well, good deal. Well, I've never been to San Antonio, but I've heard some great things about the city and just the lifestyle and the culture there. I've heard some pretty amazing things.
Right. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the river walk, and she just finds different paths to run on with her dog, who is also a Weimaraner. So there's kind of a trend there.
Yeah.
But they just go and do their own thing, and she has some friends down there that she hangs out with, and can't wait to move south.
Nice. Well, why don't you let our audience know you are in a very special place in your home, and you were telling me a little bit about the story about the actual your space, as you referred to it as. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the physical location you're at right now?
Sure. So it's actually our daughter's old bedroom, which I painted, and that part over there is my gym's got treadmill and all that stuff. But this is actually underneath the stairs. And everything in here I found around the house except for the chair I'm sitting in, just a cheapy little beanbag chair from Walmart. But I call it my mom's space. And I suppose, we all need our space. Dads need space, moms need space. So it's just, I journal in the morning and then I'll work out and then I go to work. So it's just my little Zen area.
Sure. Perfect. Well, and I know when we were talking earlier is that and I know we'll get into it, is that there is a couple things, couple different tools that you have that you've been utilizing for your own uh, mental well-being and your own healing. And so for some people that don't know, and why don't you kind of fill us in a little bit about some of the setbacks that you've had in your life, and then in particular, why is suicide awareness and suicide prevention so close to your heart?
Sure. So growing up, I always worked for my dad. I was a daddy's girl. And from literally the age of 7, I started installing carpet and tile with my dad. And when I was 21, 5 days before Christmas, he was killed in a semi head on crash with a semi 5 days before Christmas. So not only did I lose my dad, my hero, but I lost my job. I honestly don't remember where I lived or worked from that December until May when I moved to Wisconsin with who is now my husband, but at the time he was my boyfriend, Sean. He had just graduated college. So that was that was pretty major. You know, you got your life set and you think this is what you're going to do. You're going to work at the family business. If you ever have kids, well, you can't install, you can't lift the heavy stuff. So you're going to work in the office and then go back. I mean, I had supposedly I thought I had my life all planned out, but little did I know it wasn't going to go that way. And then we moved to Stevens Point in Colorado and back to Wisconsin and then down here. In that time frame, it was like 9 years, and we got married and then had a baby, and we moved down here when Peyton was 3. And then 21 years after my dad died, or our dad died, Tommy passed, my brother, and he's 6 years younger than me, and he passed by suicide. And it was a Thursday, May 30th, and it was one of the worst days. So with that, I went into a really bad place. Sorry. And it was hard, obviously. Not as hard as a lot of other people, I'm sure. I don't want to, minimize anybody else's experience. But then finally, when months later, when I finally decided, okay, I got to move forward. You don't move on. You don't move on. You move forward. And ran into this guy named Kevin, and he says, you need to see someone. You can see someone at my place, or I can find you someone, but you need to talk to somebody. And I ended up seeing Delinda at your facility, and she was just a godsend. And from then, I just started changing everything I did, everything I ate. I lost 55 pounds, started taking my health more seriously, because I couldn't sit in it any longer. I mean, I guess the way I look at it and the way Tommy would say to me is that you got to move forward on things that I would try and, dwell on. And when you're driving in a car, the rear view mirror is little for a reason, because you glance back and see where you were at, but you're moving forward. So just glance and then just keep moving forward. So that's what I've been doing. I'm not going to say that it's easy. It still stinks some days. But that year that Tommy passed was really a hard year, because my mother-in-law had passed the September before. And then we had one of our dogs we had to put down that December. And then in April, Sean's grandma died. And then we had another dog we had to put down. She was really sick. And then in May, my grandma passed from old age. And then 2 weeks later, Tommy passes from suicide. And then that November, a friend of ours, Matt, passed from suicide. And the next July, my Uncle Mike passed from suicide. So it was a lot in less than 2 years, a lot of loss. And I just had to, find something different. So that's where the exercise and eating, I found that a lot of stuff has to do with what I eat. Not that you can't indulge. I'm not saying that you can only eat certain foods all the time, but I can really tell if I've eaten a lot of sodium or a lot of fried foods or a lot of caffeine, if I have a lot of pop. I can really tell my mood. And I've been doing research on the brain and, how the food affects that and your mental health and stuff. So that's what I've been doing. It's just, and it's not always the same thing. It's not like we talked earlier before we started today, is that it's not always running. It's not always lifting. It's not, but it's different things. Like I might do art, or I just started drawing last year, or I might paint, or I might, so I started making quilts last year too. I think I made like 16 quilts. I guess once I do some, I just go all at it. But it's different things. If this one thing doesn't work this time, well, then you guys switch it up, and maybe that'll work next time, and try something different.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point. And being able to have, as we were talking earlier, having more than one tool that you know will work is just what will work this time on this day. And so I think it is pretty important, and that it's change, that we have to change it up. So, exercise can be a lot of different types of things, right? It can be running, it could be, it could be working out with weights, or it could be doing some other type of aerobic exercises, or it might be taking a class, or, something like that as well. So, and there's times when you also need to be able to have other types of things to balance that out. And that's something that I've had to learn, throughout my life, is that even though weightlifting has been, for 40 plus years of my life, it still serves that purpose, but it also, I need to have other aspects of being able to get grounded, or I'll become imbalanced with that as well.
And it doesn't always have to be, like you said, it could be yoga. It could be, there doesn't have to be some strenuous, I'm going to go out and run, a marathon today, which I've never run a marathon. I've only done halves, but, it doesn't have to be that, like you said, it doesn't have to be weightlifting or running. It could be something different. It could be meditation and journaling. It could be, what I found too is that, and I got to get back to it because I've noticed I've gotten more negative, is that every day when I would journal, I would start out with gratitude. What am I grateful for? Even if it's okay, if I actually got out of bed and didn't hit snooze again.
Mhm.
Even that is it, just anything to start off your day with being grateful, I think is very important as well.
Yep. As you were talking about the series of deaths that happened, uh, prior to Tommy's death and then after Tommy's death, um, we've talked about this idea of either cumulative trauma or cumulative grief. And so tell us a little bit about, and again, you said it great, not that there's any way of comparing one person's loss or one person's pain to another. We have our own journey with our own losses or pain. So it's not a comparative thing, but maybe just to kind of, for you, as you think of the impact of those cumulative losses, how do you think that may have played a part in your grieving process?
Well, with my mother-in-law, she was really like a mom. So I try and think of things that, with her, before my father-in-law sold his home this summer, and ironically, he sold it to our goddaughter. Just out of a fluke, she came over one day and said, "What are you guys doing?" And I said, "We're cleaning out this big house with this big property. You guys interested?" So ended up that they did buy it. But I think of things like how she would handle things, and how, when I go over there and I would help with the yard work, I'd do it for her. I didn't do it because it needed to be done. I did it to honor her.
Mhm.
So I try and do things to honor people, and not necessarily do them because they need to be done, you know?
No, absolutely. And I think that it allows us to have another level of connection with that individual, and it takes something that, well, needs to be done, right?
Right.
It's a chore or a task that needs to be done, but reframing it from a standpoint of having the honor to do it versus the obligation to do it.
Exactly. I mean, it's a lot to help move yourself, let alone, someone else. You want to be respectful and those types of things. But really, anything in life, if you kind of think of, oh, I got to do it because so and so needs it done. But why are you chosen to help them? There's a reason. So I have someone in my neighborhood, an elderly lady that I've been helping with her yard. And it's like it just kind of fell into place. So evidently, I'm supposed to be there. I'm supposed to help out with her yard in some reason. And that's, you just never know what that reason is. And, you know anybody really in life when you think about things. If you always think of things as a chore and that you have to do this to help someone, then it's like you're not really doing it for the right reason. You're doing it because you feel you have to, not because you want to honor someone.
Exactly. Um, with with the, and I believe you said obviously it was Tommy, and then it was an uncle that died from suicide, and then it was a friend that died from suicide. Did I get that correct?
Well, yeah, it was Tommy and then our friend Matt in
Oh,
that November, and then the next May was my uncle. So, and actually before that, and what I found out since the last time we spoke, before pre-COVID, is that my dad's youngest brother and youngest sister also seem to have passed by intentional overdoses
mm,
of medications that they used. So then I had to look at it like, okay, it wasn't just Tommy, it's other people in our family. My uncle, after Tommy, was on my mom's side, and the two before were on my dad's side. So it's like, my gosh, what the heck's going on? Um, so there's a lot of overthinking, I think, sometimes too.
well, and let me ask regarding that with, because they obviously were tied to you as family, but biologically they before you and Tommy were born, these were two separate families.
Right.
And so with any of the investigation, research, listening, asking questions, anything that seemed to be any parallels between the three deaths?
But not between Tommy's, but between my aunt and uncle on my dad's side and my uncle on the other side. It seems a lot of challenges with fitting into the family. As far as like my dad's side, that's the Italian side. It's like it was very strict Italian. Like I was told I was a disappointment because I was a girl. I'm the oldest grandchild. My grandfather actually told me that when I was 15. So there's definitely a different type of, oh gosh, I don't even, like a hierarchy there. And when the youngest and you're not good enough, and one of them was dyslexic, and being told that they're stupid, not being included in things. And I think that all goes back to a form of bullying, and not that it's an excuse or why they did it, or all those things, but I think it had a lot to do with it.
Mhm. Well, and I think, you make a great point, because we can have some very influential people in our life, and sometimes they're blood related, sometimes they're related through marriage or maybe some other circle, that they can leave a very strong impression on us, and then that impression or something that they do or say or don't do or say can leave this wound or this impression on us, and then it's the story that we tell ourselves about that becomes the thing that haunts us.
Right. And in fact, the day that my grandfather told me that I was stupid, I couldn't add, subtract, multiply, or divide. I don't know why your dad had you working here. I mean, I remember it verbatim, and it was, I'm 53, and that was when I was like 15, you know? And my dad ended up finding out about it because somebody else was in our store at the time. And I was, of course, I was devastated and off crying in the corner, literally like at the stairway. And my dad came over and he said, I heard what happened and yada, yada. And he says, okay, so now what are you going to do about it? And I looked at him, I said, well, I'm going to prove him wrong. He said, okay, let's go. So that horrible thing might have happened to begin with, but what my dad did and said after that was priceless.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then ironically, my grandfather didn't work for us very long after that. He retired. So my dad didn't put up with a lot of stuff. He didn't tell you how he fixed it, but he would just, it would be, it'd be all right,
Mhm. Mhm. Sure. Well, and those opportunities to be with your dad, and even though it was only for 21 years, um, that those seeds that were planted, those stories that were placed with you, they go long, they live with you much longer than those 21 years. Because you could replay that particular conversation and his response to you in many different scenarios, and his response would probably be the same thing.
Right. And then I also had to analyze, for so many years it was that, oh yeah, I am stupid. I was very heavy as a teen, and then when my dad died, I just turned to food to eat, because that was my comfort. But now as we get older, of course, we're always more knowledgeable, or so we think we are. I have to think, okay, children learn what they live. And my grandfather learned what he lived. And no, he shouldn't have said that to me. Yes, it was wrong, but that's all he knew. That's all he knew, is that the women were supposed to stay home. They're not supposed to work outside the home. They're supposed to take care of the kids in the house. And so he learned what he lived. And that, yes, he shouldn't have said it, but that's also all he knew. So, it's up to us to change that cycle. And that's what I'm doing with some things that have happened in my family, is that I can't, just because somebody is blood related to you doesn't mean you have to have them in your life all the time. You can still love them. You can still wish them well. You can still not want any harm to do to them, but you have to have healthy boundaries. And if somebody's harmful to you, you're, emotional, mental, physical, whatever that may be, it's okay to say, you know what, I'm gonna love you from a distance. You can stay over there. I wish you the best. And I'm gonna stay over here, and I need to do this for me. Mm-hmm. And that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And I think, like you said, there's a combination. Sometimes we have to set boundaries, and sometimes we need to remember certain lessons, such as your dad teaching you, okay, so what are you going to do about it? How I took that is that your dad gave you a choice. You could choose to go victim and feel bad for yourself and feel sorry for yourself and hope someone will fix it for you, or he could stretch you and challenge you. What is Tonya going to do about that to prove that that perception incorrect?
Right. What can I do to make, and I would ask my dad, I'm like, okay, so why are you teaching me? And why? Because Tommy was 6 years younger than I. So I'd be like, why are you showing me all this stuff? Because I would constantly be asking questions, and he would answer them. He would be like, okay, well, let me show you why we do it this way. Sometimes you just got to learn when not to ask a question, just be quiet though too. But he's like, you know how to do it, so you don't have to pay somebody to do the stuff at your own home. And everything in our home except putting in a new furnace and a new roof is pretty much Sean and I have done it. Mm-hmm. So in fact, we're putting on a new deck next weekend. We're starting that project to save some money. So it was good to know that, you don't have to be, victim. And it really is in our head, because what is the most powerful tools we have are, our brain and our tongue, because what we say and do can be very harmful to people too.
So, and I 100% agree with you that we may not have a control over a lot of things, but the one thing that the one thing that we can influence is our thinking. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy to do, but we do have the ability to influence our thinking, or do something to get help to influence our thinking. So Tonya, coming up here in the next week or so is going to be Suicide Awareness Month. It's September Suicide Awareness Month. And then on the 21st of September, we are doing our annual Shatter Our Silence annual fundraising dinner at the Lombardi Club. And you're going to be one of our guest speakers. And so specifically since Tommy's death, you have not only have you transformed your own life and through physically and emotionally, but you've also been involved as an advocate. So tell us a little bit about what's the message you would like to get out to people who may be struggling in the darkness, or know someone that's struggling in the darkness. What would be something that you'd want to share with them?
Well, when Tommy passed, for a while, then you're kind of in a fog. And I constantly asked, why me? Why is this happening? But then I've had to learn, it's not why me. This didn't happen to me. It happened to Tommy. And this was what happened to him. So, but why not me? I mean, I got a big mouth. I can certainly talk to people and explain that, my situation, and even though what worked for me may not work for you, but it might catapult you into something different. But that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to tell people, you know what, I just need a break right now. I need some space, or, I really need someone to listen. Can you listen? And not talk, and be present. And I think all of those things are important. And when you have kids that are struggling, I think that's the hardest challenge, because just the social media aspect of life. I mean, I don't know what you think, but I think it would have been horrible when I was a kid if we had to have social media, but just to listen, or just to be there for them and just hold their hand. And even if they don't want to talk, that's
Mhm.
okay too. But just to have somebody that they know has their back is very important.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right that there is a time and a space for solitude, as you shared in your own journey. But it's critical that when we find ourselves in a dark spot, right, which is part of life, it's what do we do with it? And being by ourselves and isolating, either physically isolating or mentally and emotionally isolating, meaning not share anything, keeping everything inside and
Right.
just trying to fix it on our own, usually compounds the shame, compounds the the negative, half empty thinking, and because we know that depression in particular and anxiety lie to us. It is not a truth teller. That's not to say that when we are battling depression or anxiety, it may very much reveal a truth within us that we didn't think we maybe had, but it will lie to us because its primary motive is to be in control. And I think something you said earlier is a good message for people to to um to cling on to, instead of why me, more like what your dad said, what are you going to do about it?
Right. What can you do to help? Why not me? What can I do to help? And some days it's like, you know what, I just got to take a break. I can't, you know, talk about um this, suicide and stuff like that, because I just need to re-energize myself. But like you said, you have to get, and I call it the hamster wheel. You have to step off that hamster wheel and the negative thinking and isolation, because it's not going to do you any good. You've already thought about it and rethought about different things and different aspects, or what you could have done or what you should have done. And again, that's the rear view mirror. Glance there and find something different. And that's when you have that, some people might have a jar with a bunch of popsicle sticks with different things. Oh, art. Okay, I'm going to do something with art today, or outside. Okay, I got to find something outside today. It doesn't have
Mhm.
to be specific unless you want it to be. It could be, work on quilting, or, work on cross stitch, or, work on plants. Cause like my yard is what I love to do in the summer as well. But just to have a physical tool to be able to pull from, I think is helpful too. And think about the different things that you could be doing instead of sitting in isolation. Even if you go to the mall, you're around people and smile at people, and maybe that's the only smile they'll see that day. So it's important to get out too.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Tanya, thank you for being with us today. If someone wanted to reach out to you, had questions, or just wanted to reach out to you in general, what's the easiest, best way for them to get in contact with you?
On Facebook, I am Tonya Cassata-Rink. They can message me there. Not on Instagram all that much, but on Facebook, it'll alert me. So
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you again for being with us, and definitely thank you for the work that you've done on yourself, and being willing to share your journey and your message with others. And I am looking forward to you being with us on Thursday, the 21st of September. So thank
I
you
am
again.
looking forward to that too. Thank you.
Yep. As we are going through the next few weeks in particular, focusing on suicide awareness, if you find yourself or someone that you care about in a dark spot, there is always reaching out by the suicide suicide crisis line at 988 or texting 741 741, or if it's imminent threat, just to contact 911 to get emergency help that way. But if there is something in Tanya's story or something we talked about today, you think might be beneficial to someone else, please share it and tell others about what you heard us talk about today. As always, thank you for being here, and I look forward to being with you next week.